Alrighty. Okay, so then this session is called Enhancing Your Field Program by Implementing a Clear Structure. So we're just going to get started with a couple of introductions, and we're just going to talk a little bit about our background, right, and some of our history of success with field programs. And then we'll get right into it. We are going to be breaking up this presentation into two sections, where in the first section, we're going to be talking about program design, which essentially is some of like the planning that goes on behind, like, when we um, put the pieces together, right, for our field program. And then the second part is going to be about team structure, right, structuring our field team. So that's a little bit about what's going to be going on today. So with that being said, I will throw it over to Samantha to get us started.
Thank you, Cassandra. Let me just, I'm having, okay, here we go. I lost the slides for a second on my computer. All right, so we'll start with some introductions. My name is Samantha Valadez. I'm the field director for CNC Education Fund. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I've been with CNC for, well, since 2014, actually. I started as a volunteer canvasser. So I actually went to school in UC Merced, graduated with a bachelor's in political science and a minor in professional writing. In my sophomore year, I was looking to get involved and get some experience with an organization, and I met an incredible organizer named Lisa Marroquin, who made such a huge impact on me. She looked like me, she sounded like me, she was around my age, and she was leading this huge movement in the city of Merced that I knew right away I wanted to be part of. Just to give some quick context, in the city of Merced, Merced city residents wanted to move from at-large elections to district-style elections to be able to have a representative city council that where everyone could have their voices heard regardless of their skin color, zip code, or socioeconomic status. So the measure on the ballot passed, and now we have district-style elections, and this was in 2014. So ever since, I fell in love with field programs. I've canvassed, I've phone banked with CNC, and when I graduated in 2016, like other college student, my plan was to go back home and find a job. But my executive director, Pablo Rodriguez, he offered me a job in Sacramento, and my assignment was to start an office. And I took on the job, and my first project in Sacramento was to get together a team of 25 phone bankers. So we didn't have an office, so I had to find a location that was ideal to have a phone banking operation. And in a city where I didn't know anyone, I was like, how am I going to hire 25 people in such a short amount of time? So I brought on Cassandra. And she's not from Sacramento, she's from the Bay. So together, we were able to form this team, and really we just did it by showing up to events, showing up to organizations, talking to the front ladies, who are the people that actually know everyone. They referred us to great people, and then we were just making friends. And the folks that we did hire for that team, we would ask them to refer more people like themselves, and that is how we formed our team of 25. um, but I'll stop there, and I'll that was just my beginning with CNC. And in 2017, I've been field director and supervising all field campaigns statewide for California. So I'll throw it over to Cassandra.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha, for that introduction. So, my name is Cassandra Gutierrez, and I am the Deputy Field Director at Communities for a New California Education Fund, or CNC for short. Very similar to Samantha, I started with CNC in 2015 as a volunteer canvasser. And then as of 2018, I've been the deputy field director. I think my experience, with running field programs with CNC has been just such an amazing journey, right? It's just rewarding to have the chance to actually reach like reach thousands and thousands of voters who would otherwise not be contacted or not often contacted. So at the moment, I am based in Vallejo, California, around the San Francisco Bay Area. And just like Samantha, I graduated from UC Merced in 2016 with a bachelor in political science and professional writing.
Thank you, Cassandra. Let's go. We decided to add just a few pictures of our journey with CNC. And we'll just briefly go through this. On the first picture, where decisions are made by those who show up, that was in 2015. After the measure from at-large elections to district-style elections had passed in the city of Merced, we had to turn out people so that they could decide on a map. And we did such a great job that we filled up the entire room. We did all this phone banking and canvassing, and there was so many people that we actually had to have another room where people could see the meeting go on with a screen. So we did an excellent job there, and we had people give public comment and prepare them, and it was such a wonderful experience and a historic experience to have people fill up city council like that. And the other pictures, they're field campaigns that Cassandra and I have led together, a lot of wonderful people that we've met. And the first phone banking station that you can see on there with laptops, that was in a classroom in Sacramento. And that was the first campaign that Cassandra and I led there, where we hired 25 folks to phone. In that program, we were manually dialing, but using the computer to input answers. Right over here to the right, with the Resiste posters, that was our first office in Sacramento that we leased out. And then down here in the second phone banking operation, that was actually a team of 60 phone bankers that Cassandra and I were overseeing. But right there, you can see the headsets already. We were doing a predictive dialer system, which is when the laptop dials for you. So it's much more efficient, much faster. You can reach way more people that way. And the last two pictures is of our canvassers going out, door knocking, and having awesome conversations with families in our neighborhoods. And we now use tablets. Before we would use paper lists. But it's been such a great experience to just be able to grow and also implement technology to be more efficient. And we'll talk more about that later in the presentation, but just wanted to give a quick snapshot of the work that we started doing. All right. Just some brief background on Communities for a New California. We are a statewide nonprofit organizations. We have 4 offices across the state, in Sacramento, which is more of our centralized location where bigger phone banking operations happen. We have an office in Merced, an office in Fresno, and in Coachella. But we do work in 13 county areas in Central Valley and also the Inland Empire. We reach thousands of families on any given night when we do field campaigns. When we're not running field campaigns, we have organizers in our offices who are doing base building. They are doing grassroots local organizing, and we do house meeting campaigns. In every city or town that you go to, there's always one side of town that has finished neighborhoods, town that has unfinished neighborhoods. In those unfinished neighborhoods, they lack necessities that are essential for families to be healthy and thrive in the neighborhoods that they love, like access to clean drinking water, access to quality education, healthcare clinics, street lights, stop signs, gutters. So these are the things that these neighborhoods lack. So we build committees in our neighborhoods where we bring in our families to join these committees and work on issues that are important to them. And we guide them and give them the resources to take action. So that's just a brief snapshot of our mission and our vision here at CNC. But I'll throw it to Cassandra just to guide us through some of the more recent work in field campaigning that we have done recently.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Samantha. So yeah, so some of two of the most recent field programs that we've worked on are our census education program and our COVID education program. So for our census education program, we started that field program we actually started early education in September of 2019. And then we ran that program all the way until August of 2020. So it was definitely one of like the longest field programs that we ever ran. So we started off canvassing in September, but then we started canvassing in all of our locations across the state. And then because of COVID, we had to transition all of our operations to be remote, right? So everything was switched from canvassing to phone banking, and all of our phone bankers were phone banking remotely from home. So, but we made it work. And again, it was a combination of canvassing and phone banking. And towards the end, we added some texting as well, just to, send those final reminders and that final push for people to complete their census. And we contacted over 300,000 families, right? We just we're talking to them about the importance of the census and why it was important to complete it. And then most recently in this year, we wrapped up our COVID education program and sorry, there's a typo on there, but we wrapped up our COVID education program in July 30th of this year, 2021. But we started our field program in March. So for that, we started off phone banking, and then towards the end of the program, we did some canvassing. So for that, we were actually helping people as well, book their vaccine appointment. And I did forget to mention, like for the census program, we were also patching people through, like connecting people directly to like the census hotline number so they can complete their census over the phone. So that's a little bit about the most recent campaigns that we've worked on. So now, just to give you guys like again like a brief overview of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be breaking it into two sections. First, we're going to be talking about like program design, and then the second section, we're going to be talking about our team structure that we follow, right? So what we're going to talk about is just some of like the fundamental items that we need to think about when building our field programs. And these are just some of the things that have really worked well for us and that we follow. So with that being said, I'll get us started with the first section on program design. So for program design, essentially, I'm just going to be talking about planning, right? So some of the planning that needs to be done before we start building out, the pieces to our field program. So some of the key points that I'm going to be talking about are like program goals, timeline, team size, right? Our universe or script. What type of field program are we going to run? Equipment, technology, right? All of those key items that we need to think about. Next slide, please. Awesome. Program goals. Okay. So for this slide, before initiating any field program prep or setup, right, we need to determine what our contact goal will be. Like, how many people do we want to talk to by the end of our program? So just as a note, whatever our goal is, we need to ID. At least this is the percentage that we tend to strive for. At least 65% of people that actually support our efforts. So these are people that we know will be supporting our cause. Like, for example, if we are doing voter turnout, then the people we ID'd are the people we know will turn out to vote and cast a ballot. So furthermore, once our contact goal is set, it's going to help determine like our team size, right? How many days of phone banking will we need in order to reach our goal? And then if we need to do like phone banking or canvassing. And then it also will help determine what type of technology we're going to need in order to be as efficient as possible and reach our goal. So for example, like for phone banking, you may want to consider if you need to do like manually dialing or like use a predictive dialer system, as Samantha mentioned earlier, where the computer is doing like all the work, right? Bringing in all the numbers and doing all the dialing, right? So for example, if you have like a really big contact goal to reach in a short amount of time, then you might want to consider using a predictive dialer. So that's just a little bit about program goals. Next slide. All right, so for timeline, team size. So now, that we have a clear picture on how long of a program do we need to set like calendar days, right, for recruitment, right? By when do you want to start your recruitment? By when do you want to finalize your recruitment? Like have your team like complete trainings, right? What are the dates for like training your team leader and all that? What's your program launch date? What's your program end date? So all of that kind of has to be set in stone. That way we can make sure to stay on track and not fall behind. And then for team size, I know, like a lot of that will be determined by like the contact goal, like the goal for the program. But like, let's say for example, right, that you're gonna need like that you're gonna need to hire 20 people, and let's say you're gonna be doing like a mix of phone banking and canvassing, right? You want to think about, do you need to hire um a 10 phone makers to just do like a phone banking program, and then like perhaps 10 canvassers just to do like a canvassing program. And then if it's like a team of 20, do you want like one team lead for that whole team of 20, or like a team lead for each group of 10, right? And then also you might want to consider if you need like a tech person, like someone that's just going to be troubleshooting like all the tech. And I think this is more relevant if you have like a really, really big team, and just want to have someone dedicated just to troubleshooting like, all tech. And yeah, that's a little bit about that. Next slide. All right. So for universe scripts, so for our universe, right, who do we need to talk to, right? Our universe is essentially, it's our target list of voters. So some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself, right, is who are the target voters, right? Who is more likely to align with your cause? Maybe who's more likely to not align with your cause or support your efforts? So those are just kind of like some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself. But again, it all depends on what your cause is, right? And then some of like the criteria that you might want to take into consideration when building out your list is, for example, like age, gender, party affiliation, like geography, past voting record. And again, it all depends on your goal and, I guess your cause, right, for your program. Like a sample universe that I included on here, it's like, for example, all POC age 18 to 34 who are Democrat or independent voters in Merced County who have voted in at least one of the last two elections. So something like this is a little bit more micro targeted, and the more micro targeted your universe is, the smaller amount of phone numbers and addresses you will get. So again, it all depends on your contact goal and how big of a list do you need. And if you need to expand your list and make it a little bit bigger, then you might want to think about expanding your criteria and your geography as well. And then for your script, like a basic script usually includes like your introduction, one or two survey questions, and like your an opt-in question. And an opt-in question is essentially, when we ask people on the phone if they want to receive text messages or emails from us. And we always ask this because usually what happens is, towards like, as we're getting towards the end of our program, we will usually do like a texting program where we'll text all of the people that opted in just to send them like, final reminders or updated information about our program. If you go on to the next slide, I just included a sample script. It's actually a sample script from our census work, but it might be a little blurry. But again, we included like two survey questions and then our opt-in question on the end. And then the responses we get for question one, it's going to give us like our total number of contacts. And then again, like the question three is an opt-in question, and you can see we just include like a short introduction in the beginning. And usually, along with our script, we like to have like a couple of pages just for like FAQs that are super, super helpful for our phone bankers or canvassers that they can reference to whenever they don't know like certain answers, right, to questions that people might have on the phone. And then like next slide. All right, awesome. So, what type of field programs? So, again, we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, but again, you might want to think about if you want to just do phone banking or canvassing or just texting. And usually texting is just like an addition towards like to the program. For us, we find that like a combination of everything is what works the best. And to be specific, we always usually do a combination of phone banking and canvassing. Like um, we'll start with a contact list, right? And call all the numbers on that list. And it kind of also helps to clean out that list. And then we'll transition over to canvassing to go ahead and actually talk to those people that we've already talked to over the phone, but in person. And then also it depends, like if it's like a smaller, if you're working with a shorter time frame, then usually what we do is we'll usually run two teams like at the same time. So we'll have like a phone banking team, and then we'll have like a canvassing team at the same working at the same time. But for us, we found that like a combination of both is like the strongest, right? And then usually texting is always like an addition towards the end. And then if you're phone banking, you might want to think about if you're going to be doing like phone banking remotely from home. Like, is your team going to be phone banking remotely, or is it all going to be in a centralized location, right? So if it's in a centralized location, you need to think about if you need a hardwire like all of your computers, right? Because usually that allows for the strongest internet connection, especially if you're doing like using a predictive dialer system. And then if you're phone banking remotely, right, you want to make sure that the team that you're hiring, that they have access to like a stable internet connection. If they don't, then unfortunately, right, the dialer system won't really be work. It won't really work that well on their computer. And then also, lastly, you want to think about equipment, right? And we included here a quote, but technology will set you apart, and it really will. Technology, we found that allows us to be like efficient, and allows us to contact as uh, a lot of people, right? So, for example, you want to think about, we have like laptops, headsets, for phone banking, tablets, right? For canvassers. So we want to make sure you take your inventory, right, and assess like what is needed. And then you also want to think about like your voter database platform, your dialer platform, your texting platform that you're going to be using. I do want to note, right, that you have to have like a voter list, right? Because I mean, without the voter list, you're not able to, upload any numbers to your dialer platform. So you can get this from like a online voter database platform, or you can also just purchase a list. But that just about wraps it up for this slide. And I believe, oh, it's your turn, Samantha. So I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Cassandra, for guiding us through a checklist of items that we need to consider before we start any type of recruitment. It's always good to put a thought into all those things that Cassandra went over so that you have a smoother launch of a field program. And I think something important just for me to bring up is, and that we've learned through the years, is when putting up a field program. And for example, if you're working with other organizations, like in a coalition, right, and launching the same programs together in different areas or regions that you have your base in, it's safe not to assume that they approach the work in the same way that you do. This is super important because it's best to meet with them before and kind of standardize all of those things that Cassandra went over, and also standardize, for example, like schedules of your teams that they will be working, and nightly reports, for example. And that way, you'll be able to just streamline the entire process of seeing results. But for this section, for team structure, I will be going over team lead recruitment, phone banker canvasser recruitment. We will also talk about orientation day for your team and share some sample agendas that we follow. Also, team communication, that is super important, because when you grow your teams, the communication that is going back and forth, and how you structure that in your organization is going to be vital, to get issues resolved and troubleshoot, and just make a more efficient team. Also, nightly reporting, this is one of those things, right, that we really are strict with our teams. Is reports have to be in our latest 2 hours after their shift ends. And this is important, again, because it just streamlines, like if we need to get updates to funders, or if we need to, if there's an issue and we're not getting the results that we can troubleshoot it right away the next day. Another important item here is quality control. Phone banking has its unique ways of quality control, and canvassing does too. So we'll be going over those. And also now with more and more programs being run from home, with remote phone bankers working from their home, quality control plays a big role for accountability and efficiency of your team. Team recruitment. Before I get into this, for CNC, before COVID, before the pandemic, we run monthly canvases in each one of our offices, every third weekend of the month. So what this means is that we have volunteer canvassers. We have a team of 10 in each office that come in on the third weekend, and we just go door knocking. We put up a program for them, and based on their region at the time, that's what we're educating voters, and if we need to turn them out to a meeting or city council, or maybe prep them for public comment. And we have a team lead that leads those volunteers. So this is important because it's our
I think
So it looks
Samantha,
like we totally lost her. Yeah.
Okay.
Technology is what it is, right?
Oh my God. All right. Give me, should we give her some time to join us? Let me send her a message. If not, I'll just go ahead and pull up the presentation myself. Let's see. Sorry about that, everyone. Where was she? All right. I'm going to present the pull up the presentation. Okay. I'm having issues pulling up the presentation. Give me a second. Let's see. Share. Is it portable? Sorry about that. Bear with us. Give us just about a minute. Mm. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and go ahead and continue for Samantha while she tries to reconnect. I'm not gonna be able to pull up the presentation since I'm having technical difficulties doing it, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna continue. So um, she was talking about team recruitment, right? So just some of like the responsibilities, right, like of our when hiring like a team lead, right? So usually when hiring a team lead, this is usually like a task that for us we leave up to our organizers to do, right? To identify, and usually they identify people from their base, from our base, right, who have risen to the occasion, that might be a good fit for this, and they usually recommend those people over to us, and then from there we identify, right, who would be like the best fit for the position of team lead, right? Whether it's leading a filmmaking team or a canvassing team, right? And some of the responsibilities for a team lead, right? Are recruitment, right? They're in charge of recruiting their team, right? Of supervising filmmakers or canvassers, right? Quality control, right? That's something that they have to really. Oh, there we go. Samantha, can you hear us?
Yes. Oh my God, there was tech issues and I was not able to hear anyone, so I had to troubleshoot it. But I'm glad I'm back on.
Yeah. Oh my God. I thought for a moment it was me that was frozen. So I wasn't sure if it was me, if it was you. But I was just getting us started with team recruitment.
Oh, sure.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I was just explaining just how, we leave, we usually ask our organizers for help on that, on recruit and identifying people from our base who've risen to the occasion, right? That would be a good fit for like the team lead position. And I was just going over some of the responsibilities, but I only got to go up to quality control.
Okay, sure. I can take over. Well, thank you, Cassandra. I apologize for the tech issues. I'm glad I was able to resolve them. So yeah, so some of the responsibilities, right, for a team lead, quality control. Team leads, when you're doing your interview process, they have to be okay with supervising and implementing quality control strategies with their teams, such as making sure that filmmakers are on the phones for the call time that they're supposed to be, that canvassers are being efficient and knocking on the number of doors that we set their goals for. They also are in charge of nightly reporting. And again, this just really streamlines the results that we get on a nightly basis when we train our team leaders to do this. They're also in charge of a daily prep with their teams, whether it's phone banking and they need to do debriefs in the beginning with their teams and troubleshoot any issues that arise the night before. Also, team dispatches for canvassers. They take care of the dispatch, and that's making sure that the team has the literature that they're dropping off, if they have any door hangers, snacks, water, training that day. And one of the biggest things that we train our team leaders to do is to always do daily team trainings in the beginning of each shift. And this, in a field campaign, things can change really quickly. And we need to be able to adjust instantly to be the most efficient that we can. So our ongoing is daily team trainings in the beginning of each shift. We also have them keep log of teams' daily hours. This just makes it easier for team leaders to actually do this because they are the ones in charge of film anchors and canvassers and interacting with them on a day-to-day basis. So again, it's just we try to streamline the process so that a field campaign can go as smooth as possible. Make sure to have complete teams every day. This is a big one for team leaders, and this is where it can get a little stressful for them when they're supposed to have a team of 10 on a daily basis, but let's say three people call in. So they have to make sure to have alternates ready to fill in those positions. Again, life happens. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but with this strategy, at least we can keep missed shifts at a minimum. And later we can plan on makeup days or maybe an extra shift to fill those in. These are some of the requirements that we have for team leaders when we're screening. These are three main ones. And again, it can vary per organization or the type of program that you're putting. But for sure for us, because of the communities where we serve and work in, we require that team leader is bilingual, preferred, right? Preferably they're bilingual, English, Spanish speakers. It just makes it easier because they're able to communicate with the phone bankers and canvassers who may only be Spanish speaking if we're running a program where we're targeting Spanish speakers, for example. Another must is that they must be available all days of the programs. These jobs are temporary, so sometimes they're 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 4-week program, some are longer, but we need to have someone that is reliable and will show up every day so that our field, there's no setbacks, right? And again, we can get on with our work. Transportation, this is a must if our team leader is going to be supervising canvassers. The reason for is because when they're doing quality control, we actually have them go out to the field and shadow canvassers so that they're able to give feedback right then and there and address any script issues, or just give any tips to improve conversation at the door. Those are the three main requirements that we look out for. So team leaders, we will train them, right? The organizers in each of our offices or their supervisors will train them to be able to interview phone bankers and canvassers. That way, the team leader is also helping with recruitment. But do keep in mind that we do have our organizers assist with this process because, again, we already have a base that we can pull from. But sometimes we do grow our teams really big where we need that additional help. So year round, there's 13 full-time staff at CNC, but when we run field programs, we can grow over 100 employees in a matter of a week or so. So it's important for them to be able to be trained and learn this process. So some of the things that we look for in phone bankers and canvassers is, again, that they're available all days. A big lesson that we've learned throughout the years is to not make deals with people's schedules. This oftentimes goes for individuals who can only do certain days, like Monday, Wednesday, and the weekends. We try to make up a team of people that can do all of the days so that we later don't struggle with missed shifts. However, that doesn't mean that we won't work with them. We would just have them more as alternates, so ready to come in on those days if needed. And usually, because we end up usually expanding our teams towards the end, they end up coming more often than they think. So that goes to hiring alternates. Alternates are super essential to a program. General rule of thumb for us is for every 10 phone bankers or canvassers that we hire, we like to hire 3 to 4 alternates. So 3 to 4 folks that are available to do fill-in positions in case one of our phone bankers or canvassers calls in that day for whatever reason. Again, this just helps to keep the missed shifts at a minimum, and it'll make it easier. If you have too many missed shifts, what we end up doing is we'll do a makeup day for missed shifts, or sometimes we even do 2 shifts in one one day. We'll do a morning and an evening, so that we're able to pick up on those shifts. For us, we find it super helpful to hire at least for half of the team that we hire to be bilingual. This just makes your life easier when phone banking, for example, if you're in a centralized location and half of your team is bilingual, we don't miss out on that many conversations, because we can just call one of our teammates over and take over that conversation while that person takes over the other teammate's phone, and we're able to talk to more people that way. Also, when you're canvassing, it helps strategizing when pairing your teams up together. We send them out in pairs, and we try to pair a bilingual person with a person that only speaks English, for example. And then if they need help, they'll help each other, since when we send them out, one person is on one side of the street with the even numbers, and the second one is on the opposite side taking on the odd numbers for addresses, and they keep sight of each other at all times. So if they need help, one can just quickly jump across the street and be with their teammate right away. Something important is also the messenger is just as important as your message. This again goes back to when you're planning your campaign. Depending on what type of campaign you're planning, you have to think about who you're targeting, right? So if you're doing a program where you're only doing outreach to women or women of color, then you might want to consider to have most of your phone makers and canvassers be women of color. It's just a whole different experience. You're more trusted when you go to a door and you sound and look like the person that you have on your list. You're just that more likely to be able to have a conversation where they feel comfortable. So just always think about the messenger and how it aligns with your campaign. All right. So then once you have your team hired, once you have all your phone bankers and your canvassers, then you want to have orientation day. This will be led by the team leader. So you do have to train your team lead and maybe do some role playing prior to this day, so that they can do the majority of this without minimal intervention from the supervisors, field directors, or organizers. This just really establishes a sense of authority from the team lead, since sometimes they can be younger than the team or newer to this position. So this will just establish since day one that the team lead is the person to go to if they have any questions, right? So when should orientation take place? For us, we've done it two ways, and what we've found more effective is to actually do it 2 days before launch. This just really gives them time to process everything that was covered during orientation, and gives you some time to assign them homework so that they can come prepared during launch date. For us, we find that for 2 hours, orientation day is just fine. We're able to cover everything in those 2 hours, and we're doing daily team training anyways, so the training won't stop. So this would just be like the first day that you do the training. Sometimes when you're on a short timeline or doing a rapid response field program, you can also do the orientation the day of. Just start it 2 hours earlier and then launch right away. It works well. You get them started right away, and you're able to troubleshoot that as well. So orientation agenda, we just kind of laid out what we do in orientation. We have everyone come in, right, if they're coming into an office or space, and we make sure that all their paperwork is complete and filled out before they start working. They can fill it out there, and we can help them if they have any questions. Once the team lead reviews that all the paperwork is good to go, then we can start reviewing work shift schedules. Just a refresher, because all this was addressed in the interview. So it's nice to have a refresher, since sometimes the schedules can be tricky to memorize, since they can land on different days of the week, or if you're working the weekends. Also, something that we've also include for some time now is a phone banker canvasser agreement. Because field campaigns can grow very quickly, it's important to have an agreement in place where you can lay everything out, and you'll have your phone banker and canvasser sign it. And that way, if they ever need to refer to when is pay period, what's the hourly wage, what's the work schedule, they'll have that agreements form. And also, with the growing technology, sometimes we lend them tablets or laptops, headsets, so they'll know that they are liable for it, and they'll take care of it more that way. Because sometimes they have the laptops in their home if they're doing remote phone banking. The biggest chunk of the program will be, for orientation day, will be reviewing the script and role playing. That'll take the most time. Usually what Cassandra and I do is that we gather everyone and we review the script together. We'll just do like popcorn and just have them read sections, and then that way they can ask us questions, and we'll answer all the questions that they have, so that they feel confident. And then the fun part begins. Then you get to pair them up together to do role play, and you let them know that once role play is done, we will be choosing people to come up front and do role play up front, and so that we can give them feedback, right? That is setting the tone right then and there, just helps them take it very seriously, and put more effort into their script rep. So if you're doing bilingual, or if you have different languages that you're doing your script in, that's also a good time to bring volunteers up and do it in different languages, so that we can give them feedback there. After that, the last part of it is we review technology and do a test run. Now, this is helpful so that on the day of launch, they already know what their usernames are, how to use the technology if they're logging into laptops, how to use a canvassing app if they're using a canvassing app to go door to door. So do a test run, audio checks. All that is super essential for a smooth launch date. And I'll tell you though, launch dates, the first two days are always a little hectic with little hiccups here and there, but at least you'll have a head start. And then assign some homework. What we do is that we tell them to annotate their script and make it their own, and add a little bit of their own personality. As long as they don't change the order of the questions or the script, it's mainly just to add notes for themselves. If they want to add something here and there in the intro, or points of conversation. And it's really satisfying when they come in on the day of launch and you see their scripts and it's all like written over. It just gives you a sense that they're taking it seriously and they're ready to start. And here to the right, you can actually see, this is our Merced office. They hired a team and they were doing orientation that day. We have our amazing organizer, Rosa, right up in the front, who was giving orientation that day. And I thought I'd put some sample documents on here of like the employment agreement, what it looks like, what we include on it. We include like work schedules, employment expectations, employee pay, differentiate between pay periods and pay days so that it's clear. We do sometimes reimburse for using their cell phone if they're manually dialing, and we do reimburse for mileage, so we write that there. We make sure that they know how long they're supposed to be canvassing. So if they're working a 5-hour shift, they're expected to walk for no less than 3.5 hours. And same for phone banking. We make sure that their goals are clear and what we're expecting from them on there as well, per hour. And at the end here, we have equipment policies. So if they're using tablets, computers, we make sure that they know that if they're lost or liable, that they're accountable for that. So and this has happened, and usually they just pay a fee for replacing it with our insurance, but at least they'll know. And then at the end, we just have them sign it and give them a copy. I also included just a sample phone bank schedule. Usually how the day goes on a daily field program is we get there, we do for 15-20 minutes updates, more role playing. We assign them scenarios too, so that they can change it up a bit. Then we hit the phones for 2 hours, and then we take a lunch, and then we get back on the phones. And then at the end, for 15-20 minutes, we just debrief all together. If you're at home working remotely, we'll hop on a Zoom and just debrief on how the day went, give tips to everyone. And then very similar for the Canvas schedule. I did get a question on the chat, and we'll try to share these sample materials with everyone who's interested in them. If you want to drop your email on the chat. And then I added a chart for team structure just to give a visualization of how we structure our teams. For CNC, we have field directors who oversee all field campaigns. So that's Cassandra and myself. We communicate directly with our local organizers in each of our offices. They communicate with the team leaders who are leading the field programs. And the team leads communicate directly with our organizers. And then team leads have direct communication with their teams, with their phone bankers and canvassers, and vice versa. Phone bankers, canvassers connect directly with team leads. Now, we make this is very clear since the beginning, because we've had situations in the past, especially when you have really big teams, where phone bankers or canvassers want to just jump over team leads or organizers and just go straight to field directors. And it can get hectic, because then you just have a bunch of employees who are trying to reach you. And we just try to have a process so that everything runs smoother. I also added some of the platforms that we use that help us with our field programs. We use Voxer, and we have been using that since we started. It's a walkie-talkie app, so it's really helpful when you have your teams on the field, and if they're at the door, you'll just send them a Voxer, and then they'll review it after. It streamlines communication, and we're not interrupting them when they're on having a conversation with a resident at the door by giving them a phone call. So Voxer is super useful. We do and have used Google Meets. Sometimes we've used WhatsApp, but mainly we use Voxer and Zoom. Working from home, this has been a lifesaver. We run at-home programs, and we follow the same structure, but instead of being centralized, we'll do updates, debriefs in the beginning of the shifts using Zoom. And we'll do troubleshooting with individuals one-on-ones through Zoom if they're like falling behind on their scores, troubleshoot with their script. And most recently, we just started exploring Buddy Punch. So because we do run different programs in all of our offices, this is an app that allows them to punch in and punch out, take breaks. You're able to assign supervisors like team leaders to approve those time cards, field directors, and if your EDs also want to, or if you're an ED and want to be on there to see everything, you can also do that. We're continuing still to explore it. We love it because it's not a contract. You pay for the number of users there. So something to look for if you're wanting more control over clock in and clock out. Quality control. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but super essential. Phone banking, make sure that you're keeping track of call time. Whatever platform you're using, they have an admin side, and you can see who's on the phones, who's not, who is maximizing their time and who isn't. And that way you can do one-on-ones and check in with them. For canvassing, number of door knocks per hour is a great way to keep quality control. Issues with these scores are usually because canvassers are not pre-planning their routes. And sometimes, and you need to address this very quickly, is that sometimes they want to drive to each home, which is not efficient. So the best way is to park at one end of the street, do the entire street, and maybe the two after that, and then go back to your car to drive to a separate location. Also, shadowing canvassers. We have team leads drive out to the sites and actually shadow canvassers doing their door knocking and scripts, and then we're able to provide live feedback. Keep an eye out for number of refusals, number of undecideds. Usually these are issues with script and delivery. So if they're getting too many undecideds, it could be that the canvasser filmmaker is not giving a strong ask. So you might want to address that also. Try to get all this set the first few days of your launch so that everything else can go smoother in the end. Okay, I also included a template for nightly email reports. No matter what program we run, these two reports are always they don't change. So we'll have an Excel sample, we'll have an Excel reporting. Usually this can be done by the team lead if they're experienced and you trust them to input scores on Excel. If not, this can be done by the supervisor. But what we do have team leads do is send an email template on a nightly basis, CCing senior staff or the field directors. They'll be able to put in their total surveys, average surveys completed per shift, per phoner on a day, total calls made, total contacts, total positive IDs, total phoners that day. So if you don't know how many missed shifts you have up to date too. And then finally, highlights and challenges. This really is helpful because sometimes team leads try out new strategies and you'll be able to see them on here, and also any challenges so that you can troubleshoot. But this concludes the end of the presentation. It's already 11. We had a little setback with tech, but we'll try to email all of you all the materials so that you guys can have them too if you want them. But thank you so much for joining. It's been such a wonderful time.
Samantha?
Yes.
There's a question on the chat, I think that we missed. How do you provide predictable schedules for your alternate filmmakers, canvassers?
What we try to do is also based on how effective we are and how likely we're to catch people at home. So what we like to do in the schedules that we follow is Monday through Wednesdays, 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's usually a great time because people are getting off work. And usually it tends to work well with the people that we recruit. Sometimes if we're working with students, a lot of them have early morning classes and they're free to work in the afternoons. And then weekends are important. Saturdays, we tend to catch a lot of people at home. We have a schedule 10 to 3. Sundays, we try to do a schedule later because of folks that go to church. So we try to do one. We'll try to start our shift from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m.
But yeah, I think that was just about it for questions.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It was so great to be here.
Thank you. And thank everyone. And we will see you at the rest of the convention.